This exploratory study examined how people with disabilities working to serve customers in a cafe through remote control of robots updated their identities through the use of virtual avatars. This project is an empirical research collaboration between researchers and the Avatar Robot Cafe Dawn version beta in Tokyo, Japan, where people with disabilities, caregivers, or other circumstances that make it difficult for them to go out operate a telepresence robot called Orihime from home to provide customer service at the cafe. First, please watch the project summary video. At the Avatar Robot Cafe, Orihime, a robot avatar usually placed on a table, and Orihime D, which has a mobile function, are used to serve customers. The cafe staff, called pilots, serve customers using the same Orihime, so Orihime is like a uniform. We came up with using virtual avatars projected on a huge display in the cafe to serve customers, in addition to robot avatars. By also using virtual avatars that can change their appearance at will, pilots were able to express themselves through the avatars. And we conducted a qualitative study of the identity practices by pilots. In the experiment, pilots worked in pairs to perform baking cookies in a digital twin-like virtual cafe. The same-looking cookies were prepared in the real environment, and after cookie baking, they were served to the local customers as if they had been delivered from the virtual cafe. The experimental system was built on the Japanese metaverse platform, Cluster, using the Cluster's SDK and the Unity game engine to implement the gimmick of baking cookies in a virtual environment. Although Cluster can be used to construct an immersive environment that is accessed using VR-HMDs, a non-immersive virtual environment was employed as the system in this experiment, given that the participants had various physical limitations. Video from real cameras installed in physical local cafes was streamed into the virtual cafe. It allowed the pilots to interact with local customers in real time within the virtual environment. This empirical research was conducted for approximately 5 weeks during May and June of 2023. Each week, 2 one-hour sessions were conducted on Mondays, Wednesdays, and Saturdays. We were interested in how the pilots' motivation to work and self-concept would change with the use of virtual avatars that could express themselves freely, as well as with Orihime, a sort of mass-produced robotic avatar, like a uniform. Semi-structured interviews lasting about an hour were conducted with each pilot during the experiment to longitudinally assess the pilot's experience of self-transformation through the avatar. The one-hour session was divided into 3 parts. First, in the first half hour, the pilots carried out the order-taking of the customer's meal using Orihime, which was placed in a real environment as usual with normal operations. After the food was delivered to the customer, the pilot logged out of Orihime, moved to the virtual environment, transformed into a virtual avatar, and spent about 20 minutes baking cookies. After the cookies were baked, the same-looking cookies were served in the real cafe, and then the pilots logged back into the real Orihime and had a free talk for about 10 minutes. 7 pilots participated in our study. The timing and frequency of participation varied for each pilot. P1, P2, and P3 continued to participate from the beginning to the end of the experiment, while P4 through P7 joined in the middle of the experiment period. Each of the 7 participants was interviewed in advance by the first author for about an hour, and an original avatar was prepared based on their requests. The following is a brief summary of the results of each pilot's experience. The first pilot is a man in his 50s who is healthy except for his heart, although he has a heart condition that prevents him from strenuous exercise. He chose to use a 3D avatar created by scanning his own physical body as a virtual avatar because he wanted to show customers that he himself was energetic and enjoying serving them, not in robot form. His motivation is to foreground his real-life, non-robotic self. He was originally concerned about the characteristic gap between his adult male, real-life self and the small, cute Orihime. He had a problem that when he received compliments from customers while serving them, he did not know whether he himself was complimented or Orihime was complimented instead of him. There were 2 interesting episodes he experienced during the experiment. First, matching the avatar's appearance to his own physical characteristics made it easier for him to attribute the customer's reactions and evaluations to himself, which helped to solve that problem. Using photorealistic avatars, he said, reveal his appearance and movements that had been hidden behind the robot avatar Orihime, allowing customers to more accurately perceive P1 self-expression. Furthermore, during the experiment, as he saw other participants using anime-style animals and attractive characters that were gaining in popularity, he was concerned about that he was the only one who was not as entertaining as he could be. However, as he continued to work, he overcame that identity crisis by reinterpreting the situation, saying that he was in a unique position in this experiment, as opposed to being the only one with a normal human appearance. Next is P2, who transformed into an alpaca to escape the human norm and behave more freely. P2 suffers from somatoform disorder, a condition that brings her feel ill when going out. She has been using Orihime since 2018. She stated in a pre-interview that she wanted to be an alpaca, her favorite animal, so an anime-style bipedal alpaca avatar was purchased on the avatar market site. She had always tended to get nervous while serving customers and was overly afraid of making mistakes. In contrast, she described a change in her mind when she found the customers' reactions became more relaxed when using the alpaca avatar, so she was able to forgive herself, saying, "Even if I fail, it can't be helped because I am an alpaca now." She could feel proud just to walk on 2 alpaca legs. That means the conditions under which she felt a sense of accomplishment and the quality of her accomplishment changed when she acted as the alpaca. She also said that before participating in the experiment, she viewed the avatars as mere characters, unrelated to her, but when she was actually treated as an alpaca during real-time communication with customers with the avatar, she suddenly enjoyed herself and felt a stronger sense of oneness with the alpaca and herself. In other words, the expectations he had before using the virtual avatars were overturned after use. Virtual avatars can bring about completely different impressions to users before and after the experience. The third person, P3, then, is biologically female, but has disclosed that his gender is male or X. He was born with cerebral palsy and is a wheelchair user. He also works as a freelance illustrator. In a pre-interview, he immediately stated that he would like to be a man. As a creator, he created his own attractive, anime-style boy using Void, an avatar development tool, while exploring his ideal appearance. He also used a voice changer during the experiment. As a wheelchair user, he was often looked down upon by others, and because of his high tone of voice, he was often labeled as small and cute or quiet and girlish by those around him. Such labels match the Orihime's characteristics, so he found it was especially noticeable when using Orihime. In contrast, he said he was surprised to find that his language and attitude changed in response to the way customers treated him as a man when he used the boy avatar. Interestingly, in the pre-experimental phase, he could only describe his ideal self in abstract vocabulary as male, and stated that he did not know what his ideal self was in terms of specific parameters such as appearance or tone of voice. For him, the ideal self was gradually discovered or generated through his own trial and error editing of the parameters of his avatar. Rather than existing as a clear goal from the beginning, the ideal self may have only a general direction and is formed gradually as he faces unexpected events. Now, the fourth participant is a bedridden female who was born with SMA and uses her gaze and fingers to operate a PC. She is actively engaged in various creative activities in bed. For example, owns a 3D printer at home. She used a model of a penguin as her avatar, a creation she made by using Blender, a 3D modeling tool, during her first attempt at 3D modeling with a friend. Her psychological distance to this avatar was somewhat greater than to P1 through P3. She referred to the avatar not as herself, but rather as her child. It's cute that the penguin is moving, and it makes me want to show off to customers, but it's not the same as me, said P4. In addition, P4, who was the only participant to use gaze input, complained about the burden of manipulating the virtual avatar. She described the transformation of her virtual avatar as an additional mission that is fun but requires a lot of energy. P5 and P6 were both females who use cute avatars. At the pre-interview about what kind of avatar they wanted to use, they both stated that they were not so motivated to change themselves, but would rather use their favorite characters. P5 created her own ideal cute character, but she also clearly pointed out that this was not herself. P6 used an original character avatar that the research team created based on her favorite cartoon character. Although she initially viewed the avatar as different from herself, just a cute one, she also said that she gradually became attached to it through repeated use, and by the end of the experiment, she felt it closer to herself. As with the other participants, this suggested that the avatar may generate an authentic self through repeated use while receiving feedback from others, even if it is not the correct answer that exists from the beginning. Finally, the seventh participant was a female who was a wheelchair user due to an acquired disability. She enjoyed skiing until she became a wheelchair user. Therefore, she chose an avatar that was dressed in ski clothes and had a full body expression about her favorite skiing, which means, an avatar that functioned as a self-introduction. P7 felt that it was easier to introduce herself to customers about her own interests than with the robot avatar Orime, because the virtual avatar's appearance emitted various nonverbal messages. While Orihime is a decontextualized avatar that allows the other person to communicate without preconceived notions and prejudice, it takes a lot of time to communicate because all information must be conveyed in turn in words. On the other hand, the use of virtual avatars suggested that users can quickly tell a story about what they like with the help of nonverbal cues such as clothing and movement. In summing up the 7 episodes described above, the 3 people who clearly experienced identity change were P1, P2, and P3. For these 3, the intervention of the virtual avatar had shifted the existing identities that had been positioned, or constructed, by the customers when using Orihime. For example, P1 was labeled as small and cute by Orihime even though he was actually an adult male. P2 labeled herself as a professional who never made mistakes, and P3 wanted to be a male but was often perceived as a female. By changing their appearance with a virtual avatar, the participants could non-verbally announce their new identity to others. These announcements were accepted by customers and the reaction and feedback were gradually changed, which can transform the dynamics of the loop of identity placement and announcement. Another finding is that each of the robotic and virtual avatars does not have the absolute advantage of one over the other, but each has its own original pros/cons. All of the pilots who participated in the experiment said they would like to continue using the robot avatar Orihime as well as the virtual avatar. Orihime is mass-produced and has uniform characteristics, which can anonymize, flatten, and background some disadvantages, such as disabilities. Orihime is good at aligning everyone's starting point. Virtual avatars, on the other hand, were good at foregrounding the individuality they wanted to proclaim from within and highlighting their differences from others. This research employed virtual avatars in addition to robotic avatars to serve customers, which is a proposal for a new and diverse way of working that combines cyber-physical, rather than either virtual or real. Robotic and virtual avatars have different characteristics, and each has its own strengths and weaknesses. The presentation provided guidelines for realizing a new design of identity while making good use of these avatars. That is all for the presentation. Thank you very much.